Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Webinars Now session. I'm Greg Stuckey. I'm Chief Research Officer here at Insights Now, and glad to have everybody with us today. We're going to be talking about how the vaccine is changing our behaviors. It's a really fun time from a research and especially from a behavior research perspective, because with the changes in COVID, when you get big movements in society and you get all these herding behaviors that come along, it's a great time to see, because behavior shifts really, really quick during these times, and it's fun to monitor and see how people's behaviors are changing. So we're going to be talking about that today, looking at a few statistics, digging a little bit deeper into the whys of vaccine and then what that means for us as well. Now, a little housekeeping. If you have any questions at any time, drop them into this questions box. If you're having technical issues, you can do that too. But just want to be able to get a lot of feedback and conversation going. I'll take time at the end to do Q&A. But if you have a question and I can address it in real time, I'll try to do so as well. Let me start off with a little bit of a personal anecdote here, because for this whole COVID time period, I've been meeting with some of our friends on every Friday afternoon. We go out, we drink wine, have a good time, socialize together. During COVID, we've been meeting outdoors, usually outside restaurants or outside bars, and connecting, telling stories, all the normal stuff friends do when they grab a drink on Friday afternoons. A couple weeks ago, one of the couples that we meet with said, hey, next week, let's meet at our house. They had just done some great renovations in their yard. They'd done some landscaping. They wanted to show off. It was like, fantastic. Let's all go meet there. And when we showed up on that next Friday, they stopped us in their driveway. And before we were allowed to come in, they asked, are you vaccinated? And it struck me really oddly, because these are people I meet with every week, and these are people I know, and they know what my vaccination status is. But there was something about the context that now that it was their home, it changed. It was more important. Something changed, and they were willing to sacrifice a little bit of like embarrassment. Oh, I can't remember if they were or not, and I feel uncomfortable, et cetera, so forth, to ask the question. So that made me want to know, what do you think? Like, are you comfortable asking a person if they're vaccinated before they go into your house? And so I'm going to start a little poll here. We'll just get a few answers going on it, so that you can answer this. Oh, it looks like the poll is broken today. We will get it running a different time. Why don't you drop a note into the question section? Are you comfortable asking a person if they're vaccinated? Yes or no? Just type that into that question section, or not sure, if you're in there. Tell me what you think, and I'll look at those results as we're going along here. All right. So certainly lots of people, I see quite a few queuing towards the yes side in all of these answers. So that's really good to see that we're kind of all in one mindset. Makes it easier for me to talk about, I suppose. So asking people if they're vaccinated, it surprised me that they would ask that question. But honestly, it shouldn't have surprised me at all, because if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we know that safety is more foundational than the love and belonging, friendship level of needs. And so safety is always going to take priority over friendship. So for them, it was comfortable, if you will, right? They knew it was more important to ask and feel protected and have their house feel protected than it was for them to risk that embarrassment of asking something that they may or may not have already known the answer to, right? Should have known the answer. We talk about it all the time. But this makes us, if we then map this to the whole population of, in this case, the world, we can start addressing, well, why is the vaccine important? What are some of the behaviors going to be associated with a vaccine? What are some of the things we expect to see? Well, what we should be expecting to see is a lot of safety-oriented conversations, and it doesn't matter if you're pro or anti or whatever your stance is on the vaccine or whatever your personal situation is, whether you can or can't, safety is going to be more important than, say, the social piece of the equation. And I think that should be its own eye-opener as well. Now, we did a survey to 322 people in the US, conducted in early mid-April, and we looked at a couple of topics. Number one, people's vaccine status and plans and their reactions to being vaccinated, as well as then how is that going to impact your life, whether you are or not vaccinated. The fact that vaccines are rolling out en masse is affecting everybody's life, so we wanted to know how is that going to affect you. So it really ended up being the question of the year. Are you vaccinated? And really, while it seems like a simple question, it's actually a little more complicated than that. And because of social, regulatory, political implications that all filter through when you ask that question, it's a more complex question because it comes with this cloud of belief systems. It may cause skepticism. People might not even trust the data that they get from it or the answers they get from it. So as we looked at this, we wanted to make sure that we were addressing this complicated research question and make it easy for people to give us answers about what their status was without making them feel offended, no matter what their point of view was. So we had to accept it's not simply a yes/no question, even though we're going to report a lot of the data from the vaccinated pro or vaccinated no side. It's going to be based on this distribution of information. So we asked the question in this way, which describes your situation? Well, I've received it, one or both shots. I want to get it, but I'm still waiting because in a lot of places it just wasn't available, or there wasn't timing, or they had a schedule, or in early April, there was still a lot of diversity in that area. I haven't decided if I will get the vaccine, so left it open either direction. And those people were like, at this point, I've decided I'm not going to get the vaccine. And you could, of course, prefer not to answer the question at all or even not even participate. So what we're going to be showing is we're going to be grouping the top two together, are the people who are or plan to become vaccinated and the people who are undecided or don't plan on getting the vaccine at this time, or at the time in April, right? So let's look at what we got. Out of 322, we overwhelmingly got, basically an 80-20 split. 80% were on the have been or in the process of or want to become vaccinated, and 19% on the undecided or no plan side of the equation. And if we look at how that breaks down a little bit, age, we thought age actually would be a pretty big factor. Actually, age wasn't a very big factor, and with only 322 people in this study, it's pretty good size, but even the little dip we see with 55% and older really isn't strong enough to say that it was a major player. However, what we did see was a major player was location, where people said they lived. So those people saying they lived in rural areas were much more split. And this aligns with a lot of the other research that you see published in terms of people's attitudes, beliefs towards the vaccine, challenges with the vaccine, et cetera, so forth. That in the rural populations or less dense populations in general, we're seeing a lot less speed of getting vaccinated, rather in those locations, and especially counties across the US where they're in more urban populations, you're seeing the speed at which people are getting vaccinated is much, much higher. So this was an important piece of information as well, and certainly can, if you're thinking about research or innovation implications and has to do anything with the vaccination, an important piece to note as well. So let's drill down into those 81% a little bit more. For those people who are plan, we asked them, well, how much safer do you feel after getting vaccinated, or are you going to feel after you get vaccinated? And you can see that It's not as skewed towards extreme as maybe some people may have hypothesized. And there is even a couple of people at the bottom, a couple of percent, who it's really not affecting their safety. But by and large, the primary thing that's happening here is getting vaccinated is helping alleviate some social anxiety, alleviate some of the fears that they have. And we saw that in a lot of the ways that people expressed why they were getting the vaccine or why they were feeling this way. So we had a teacher saying that she felt more secure because she teaches young children. We had another person saying, I feel tremendous relief. I can now make the necessary forays into public areas without feeling all that anxiety. And another saying, I feel more safe. I feel like I made a difference in my community by taking the vaccine. So in this particular case, making other people feel safe as well made them feel more comfortable. Now, if we also look at the impact people think it's going to have on their life, if we look at how much impact do you think this has? Now, while the vast majority of people said that it would make them feel safe, notice that on the negative end here, 19%, 1 in 5 people said, yeah, I don't really think the vaccine is going to impact any of my behaviors. And if you look at the types of comments you get, it's like, I still do everything I did as if I didn't have the vaccine. I'm still doing social distancing, still wearing my masks. It's just too soon to be changing my behaviors as related to keeping myself safe. And we saw this style of conversation around the vast majority of everybody in that 19%. Now, if we contrast that with the other end, the 26% who are in the very much or great deal end, so the 1 in 4 who are saying it really impacted my life, this is where you see some significant life changes. So one of my favorites was I started crying when I got my second dose because I realized I'd be able to hug my mom. I hadn't been close to her in over a year. I missed her so much. And that personal touch that happens was a dramatic impact on people's lives because they could start doing social things that they didn't feel safe doing prior to this. Another side of those people were people who getting back to old habits, old behaviors that they had that they've now curtailed for a year. So this coming Friday will be 1 month, and I ate at a restaurant for the first time, right? I was masked, but it felt great to be in a restaurant, distance, but I felt normal. And getting back to some of the behaviors that were happening in the past is a large part of that big change on my life. So the big changes aren't like, hey, revolutionizing my life, moving to another country. Big changes are getting back to things that you used to do regularly that now for the last year, you simply haven't been able to do. Another one was, which I thought was rather interesting, was some of the big changes or things that we're going to do aren't really, really dramatic, or we're finding things that are normal to be very dramatic and influential. So this person said, hey, once vaccinated, the first thing I did was travel out of state on a mini weekend getaway. And you're thinking, ooh, weekend getaway. I went to the Mall of America. So I got vaccinated, and my big giant excursion was to go shopping right at an engaging place where I know there's going to be crowds of people, et cetera, so forth. So engaging again in that outdoor activity, but it doesn't have to be a big change that is dramatic. It's getting back to, again, those things that you saw before. Now, as I was writing this deck and going through this data, I got a text from one of my good friends, and he sent me this text and picture of his aunt and uncle that I got. He was gracious to let me post for this talk, but this was like on a personal level, it also got to me, right? My aunt and uncle, and they live out in Florida, and he's in a nursing home. And so that nursing home wasn't allowing anybody in unmasked, or even with masks. And so it's been 427 days. Imagine they're counting, actual counting, right? Since she was able to actually go in and give him a hug and touch him. And you can see just the delight and joy that now having those restrictions lifted that are coming because of her getting the vaccine was just transformational in their lives as well. So big changes because of the vaccine, and those social changes cannot really be overstated in any way. They're pretty dramatic. All right, now let's look at the other 19%, because those who are in the undecided or not planning on being vaccinated are every bit as concerned about safety as those people who are getting vaccinated. The safety mechanism runs through absolutely everything. They're just focused on a different type of safety. So those that are undecided are really concerned about the vaccine, the safety of the vaccine itself. So 76% of the people were like, I don't feel comfortable that the vaccine itself is safe. I'm worried about side effects. I don't believe the vaccine is effective. And across just those first two, the ones that don't feel it's safe or are worried about side effects, that's almost 100% of this group of people picked one of those two answers. So you really have to understand that just because you don't want to get the vaccine, there's a concern about the safety of it. Now, within that, there is a small group all the way at the bottom, very important group it's a smaller portion of our population in the US, but it's a really important group, and it's the health reasons group. And this group has been told by doctors they can't get the vaccine because of maybe allergies, specific conditions that they have that they're just not sure if it's safe for yet. Pregnancy, of course, is a big one. A lot of people are saying, well, I'm just going to be patient and wait because we don't have the information yet about the vaccine, or my doctor's telling me to wait because they don't have the information yet. So there's definitely a group of people, most of them fall into this undecided group because they're really not sure that the vaccine is going to keep them healthy or be able to keep them safe. So you can see that safety piece flows through all walks of life, no matter where you fall, whether you're getting the vaccine or you're not getting the vaccine, or you're still trying to figure out what's right for you, still centers around the area of safety. So we know that getting the vaccine is all about feeling safe, and those who are getting it, it makes them feel safe. Those who are not interested in getting it don't feel the vaccine itself is safe. So they're all looking to stay well in life. So now that we understand where people are with the vaccine, let's jump into how people think, what kind of specific behaviors we think are going to be changing as we move forward. So first and foremost, we're going to see across all the different types of behaviors that we asked about and activities that people could do, think of out of home type activities. Those were the ones that were by far and above stated to say, I'm going to do this more often now that I've got the vaccine. So we're seeing more social, right? I don't feel as anxious as I did. Now that my friends and family are vaccinated, I'm able to have small gatherings. I'm able to do things I didn't feel comfortable with doing before. So we see a lot of people, 55% of the people, whether they were vaccinated or not, are saying because the vaccine's out there, I'm much more likely to do friends and family gatherings. 44% say I'll go to a place like to see entertainment such as concerts or movies. 39% saying I'm going to be going to gyms or doing community sports more. So more socially group connected activities. Likewise, more group settings as well. So not just interaction with other people, but just in settings where groups exist. So sitting down in a restaurant or outside a restaurant, more people going to restaurants as a result of higher levels of vaccinations, and shopping at indoor malls. So more people going to places where groups will exist, whether they're interacting with them or not. And then finally, more adventure. More people traveling on planes. 50% of the people said they're more likely to travel on a plane. 43 more likely to do road trips, and 40% getting outdoor more. And which is interesting because outdoors was already a pretty big lift while we were in heavier quarantine, people were spending their time and logging for those outdoors. And now that the vaccine's hit, we're seeing even more desire to get into those outdoor settings. So getting to places where they constantly don't have to deal with, like for the travelers, getting a negative COVID test so that they could go do something, feeling more free to be able to travel without being impeded. Right. Now, some behaviors are likely to stay. So the sanitary safety precautions, we know that the amount of people doing hand washing, masks, gloves, social distancing has been really, really high. And we see that the vast majority of people are going to keep doing that behavior. Even some people saying, yeah, I'll even do it more often, because if masks are coming off, I'm even that much more concerned that maybe I have to wash my hands a little bit more. So we had some comments like that in there. Ordering takeout, I mean, takeout orders went through the roof. People are finding that that's a really convenient part of life. And so we're going to see that high level of takeout ordering continue to drive as well, or stay at a high level as well. And then going to grocery stores, shopping in stores. So we didn't dip too far down on the in-store shopping. Like, most people were still doing in-store shopping. It came down roughly 20% over whether it was pre-COVID times. So here we're starting to see that 20% eke back up again. Don't know that it'll ever get all the way to where it was pre-vaccine, with all the people realizing how easy it is to shop online. So we're expecting certainly a little bit more uptick in in-store shopping, but the vast majority of people who are already doing it are going to keep doing that. All right, now there are some things that people are not going to do. We have to remember that while people really are, there's a lot of people going to do more of certain activities, there's still a subset of people, and it's a smaller percentage, it's in the teens and even single digits, who are still in the, I am avoiding this activity, right? I'm going to do this even less often, because I found that getting rid of it either wasn't impactful to my life, or was maybe even had a positive influence, or I'm still really afraid. And most of these comments that go along with these are about being afraid or concerned for safety, essentially. So while in 2020, so this was April of 2020 and April of 2021. So April of 2020, at the height of the first realization that we got to do a lot of quarantining here, and there was all the news about how fast COVID was spreading. We started seeing, community activities, travel, gyms, people saying, I'm not going to be able to do that, or I'm not comfortable doing that. Cruise ships, remember at the start, there was a lot of focus on how COVID would hit a cruise ship, and boom, everybody would get it. And that was, causing deaths, right? Really concerned. So a lot of people said, no way. Well, you still got a pretty good group of people saying no, but at the same token, it's coming down. So there are certainly, we certainly see some progression back to maybe the tasks and activities that we were doing before COVID times, but we're still going to have a pretty good buffer of people who are going to be fairly reluctant to go into those. Now, the other thing that happened after this survey was completed was the CDC launched a set of guidelines that told us, hey, if you've been vaccinated, you more or less don't have to wear a mask. And I know it's a little more complicated guideline than that, but just sticking with that general theme, we went back to all these people and talked to them about, well, tell us more about what you think about these guidelines. Read the article, give us your opinions. What are you likely to do? What are you not likely to do? How comfortable are you with these particular guidelines? So when we look at their comfort level with the mask wearing specific, not having to wear a mask if you're vaccinated, we find that that's pretty split. We got 37% saying, nope, I'm not comfortable. And the vast majority of people saying they're not comfortable are saying it because they don't know if somebody else is vaccinated or not, and they would prefer if everybody else wear their masks. They simply are having a trust issue, right? If somebody else is not wearing a mask, they don't trust whether that person isn't wearing a mask just because they don't want to, or if they've actually been vaccinated. So there's that side of the uncomfortableness. Also mixed in with that was a subset of people who made comments about, well, the vaccine's still spreading. So it's not like just because you got vaccinated, it eliminated COVID altogether in the world. It's still out there, still a problem. So being safe is the smart, socially acceptable thing to do. That's a smaller group from that 37%. On the comfortable side is half the population who are saying, yeah, since the science shows it, I trust the science. I trust what's being told to me by the CDC. They have a trustworthy value in my life, and therefore I feel like I'm at low risk of contracting and transmitting the virus if I've been vaccinated. So I feel comfortable if people don't wear masks. Now, what's really interesting about this is that, we know as behavior scientists that context matters, right? Everything changes based on the context you're in. So we wanted to push a little bit further on the people's level of comfort and just look at the group of people who are comfortable and say, well, okay, where are you comfortable with this? And on the left over here, we have not wearing a mask outside, 57% of people saying, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Not wearing a mask indoors drops down to 32%. And seeing others not wearing a mask, only 18% comfortable. So while you may personally be comfortable not wearing a mask, chances are you're a little uncomfortable if other people around you are not wearing masks. Social distancing and seeing people outside your household, those number, right? Not social distancing, still at 24%. So while the mask wearing guidelines in place and while there maybe people aren't going to wear a mask more, context really does matter. And especially we're still having a little bit of a challenge with whether we trust that we're safe in these environments. The mask makes us feel safe, and taking it off is now making us, a lot of us, feel uncomfortable. Certainly, like 4 out of 5 of us feel uncomfortable when we don't see others wearing a mask. Now, we know all this information is really interesting. It's intriguing about human behavior, and it's intriguing to see this. But as innovators, as people are building new products, new services, new communications for the market, what are we to do with this information? Well, the first thing we want to do is look at people's motivations. We know that safety is a huge motivator, but we want to take a look at a little bit finer grain breakdown of people's motivations. There's functional motivators, right? These are central to fulfilling those basic human needs, bottom of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy, where safety, protection, health, preparedness in life are being met. So you get motivated to buy something or use services or do a behavior based on how well it delivers against your functional needs in life. There's social motivators, right, which are important to changes in our family and our relationships, right? It's like in my story, being comfortable asking a person if they're vaccinated or not vaccinated. The types of products that, and appetizers, like we had appetizers at their house. What are they going to bring? Are they motivated to pick things based on social? Certainly are, right? So there's social motivators. There's sensory or sensorial, perceptual motivators, because this is especially important in the COVID times in terms of our coping mechanisms. So you use your sensory experiences to help you cope with some of the underlying challenges and essentially status level of often feeling uncomfortable, fearful, unsafe, et cetera, so forth. So we use our sensory motivators to help us cope with those things. And then the psychological motivators, right? Getting balance in life, creating mood shifts for yourself as well. Now, with COVID and the mask wearing, we know that mask wearing is really stemming from that functional motivation. Therefore, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to see a really fast change in mask wearing. There's going to be a little spike because you saw a bunch of people feeling pretty comfortable, but because you saw that there's that, it's only 18% comfortable when they see other people wearing a mask, that means they're feeling unsafe, and they're going to notice other people are feeling unsafe. And so you're going to see a fairly slow transition in terms of mask wearing, especially in densely populated areas, because and in areas where there's going to be a lot of people around. You're going to see still a pretty good portion of the population wearing masks. But what about the other motivators? What about how this is going to affect, for instance, our buying behaviors for new products? Well, one of the things we've been doing in addition is tracking people's motivations to buy products ever since the beginning of the quarantine period a year ago. So if we look at how those motivations are shifting for the products that people are buying, during that very first launch of quarantine and toilet paper not existing and water not existing and meat going out, et cetera, so forth, the functional motivators, I mean, most all of our purchases were being driven by the need to just keep our foundation safe, right? Make sure that we have the basic needs in life, cleaning supplies, things that just would fulfill our basic basal needs. So the vast majority of our purchases were functional. And then as we got into July, August, time period in 2020, we started seeing, you know, a little more comfort and a realization that this is going to take a while. And we started moving because more out of stock stuff didn't exist anymore. We started getting into comfort with how we were cleaning, our new behaviors, and we started to see those sensorial motivators, right? The coping mechanism motivators. We started to see those take over as the primary motivator for buying products and buying something new. And now as we're getting into April and we're starting now getting a lot of vaccines, and at the beginning of April, you know, it was just starting. We're just kind of at the bottom of the transition period of people getting vaccinated. And so what's going to be happening? Well, number one, we're starting to see those sensory motivators start to uptick a little bit, but we're also seeing the social motivators move in a direction, and we're going to start. So I'm going to zoom in on just that, right? If you just look at this right end, what do we know is going to change? We've been seeing social motivators slowly eke down here as people, you know, if you think about the time period when it was a little higher, there's a little more holiday time period there, so a little more social buying during those holidays, and it's been eking down ever since. We're going to see that tip back up. We're going to see that come up as people start doing more group activities. They're going to start buying foods, products, fashion, things that will connect with them because they're going to be in public more often. They're going to be in groups more often. They're going to want to impress people. They're going to want to take care of other people. And so you're going to see those social motivators start to rise, and we'll continue to see those functional motivators stay back down to some of the lower areas where they were going to be, you know, pre-COVID time periods. So what is this storyline then? At the end of the day, how does this impact innovators? Well, you've got to place your core focus on the core drivers, and that core driver is feeling safe. So if you have a product lines, if you have products that can message around safety, that's still a huge, huge driver for people right now. So leveraging or aligning with safety is still a very important thing. It's going to be important for a while. So if you're still bringing out new innovations, make sure it delivers well on that. Social activities are going to increase. So if you have products designed for social activities, if you have innovations that have been sitting in your waiting pile because you're waiting for social to come back, now's the time to start getting those dusted off, because we're going to start to see more and more group events as we head into the summer. The weather's going to be better. We're going to have a lot more outdoor group events, especially coming up. So this will start to take back over as a new grab, if you will, for wanting to find products that are engaging again. And then out-of-home activities are also going to increase as well. So as I mentioned, we're coming into the summer months when in the United States where those out-of-home activities are pretty high anyway, but people are definitely wanting to make that move. Now, what's across this, I didn't really mention this in specifically, but in a lot of the stories, you also saw a movement towards what I'll call short-term nostalgia, eating at restaurants, right? So some of the things that people have left aside for maybe a year or just over a year and a half maybe for some people, are going to be things that they're going to start really craving. And so they're going to crave a certain sensory experience, and they're going to go look for that product again. So some of the nostalgia-oriented products, but not like 1950s nostalgia, but we're talking, 2019 nostalgia. They're going to start looking for some of those nostalgia things as well. And part of that is going to be highly connected to the social activities. So they're going to want that nostalgia that ties them to other people. So think about that as well if you're doing innovation work. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into questions. I'm going to go ahead and go to the question pane here, but if you have a lot more questions that you've got, go ahead. Now's the time to take a look and pop those in there. So I'm going to see what all we have here. So, okay. Oh, these are some good questions. Long questions too. I have to read a little bit. Okay, so this question is, first question here I'm going to look at is in B2B, can customer churn be impacted by the change from face-to-face interactions versus remote? So that's a really good question. So what we've seen is, and it looks like in the rest of your comment you've seen as well, there's a lot of social relationships that have now moved to video. You're watching me on a video today. We've moved to a lot more of this video interface, and I think what we're going to see based on the human behavior side is that there's still a longing for social interaction. We're getting a good amount of that social interaction with video and being able to read people's body behavior and how they're interacting with others, seeing them smile, et cetera, so forth. If you're face-to-face and you have a mask, you can't see all that. So there's definitely still some strong value in terms of having the shiny tech, no travel oriented interactions. But as the mask wearing restrictions come away, there's certain things from behavioral research as well as from B2B interactions that you can't get that vibe, right? That intuitive gut reaction, body language, full vibe. You can't really get that over video unless you're really know that person really well. So it's we're going to certainly see a rise in face-to-face, but it's going to likely not come back to the level that it was in 2019 very, very quickly. So just even simple things like conferences, you know, the amount of virtual attendance to conferences will probably stay very high over time. Amount of face-to-face visits likely going to be more smaller group oriented because people are still feeling more comfortable in smaller groups than bigger groups. So it'll take a while. The basic behavioral principle behind that is herd, right? The herd mentality. So if you see lots of people doing something, you're going to follow along as well. So if you see everybody else is starting to feel pretty comfortable and there's no negative effects to face-to-face, then you'll start doing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more as well. Certainly the shiny new, i.e. all this virtual interaction is going to be more common. I think you're going to see as people get better at saying, how do we, you know, get a better, you know, connectivity, emotional connectivity with people via video, you'll see some of that continue to go. But certainly there's nothing like actual physical in-person, especially for friends, people that know each other well, that touch, that sense of personal touch. Like I mentioned in my set, 427 days without being able to, you know, actually touch your husband. I mean, that was her situation, and him for his wife as well. But it's like that, the power that draws those people together is palpable. And so if you've got in business or in research that strong pull towards being in person with other people, especially with people that are friends, you're going to see that come back, and there's going to be a strong desire that's going to pull people together, that's going to get them past their safety fears. All right. Any other questions? All right. Other things that not changing. And we don't have any information on any specific vertical markets where changes may be more rampant. Like, so it's a good question. Are any particular product types or vertical markets going to be more affected by no mask wearing? I don't have any data to support any of that, so I'm not 100% sure that whether we will see it. Like, I don't know if we'll start seeing more, you know, fountain drink use, or as those types of self-service items open up. I don't know if we'll start seeing those things. We can certainly make some predictions as people get more comfortable with things that are public. But I would say in the short run, in the next few months, certainly we're still going to see a lot of restrictions in that area. It may take some time to have certain verticals where there's more social product or more like sharing of things like a dispensing device might take a little bit longer to come into play or get the volume they had before. All right, fantastic. Well, I don't see any other questions that I wasn't able to pull in during the course of the webinar here. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate everybody being here today. Next month, we're kicking off more of a research series. So we've got a webinar coming up on June 17th. It's going to be focusing into tapping into research communities, benefits, drawbacks of using communities, certainly different ways to think about people and how you interact with them. As we've gone to a more tech-forward society, if you will, there's a lot of changes in the way we're interacting with participants in research as well. So we'll talk about some of the benefits, drawbacks, experiences that we've had in that particular area. And if you have any questions at all, curious about something that I didn't talk about, just want to explore something in more detail, go ahead and drop me a line anytime, available via email. On our website, there's a chat feature as well. Glad to answer your questions anytime that you would have them. All right, hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day and enjoy seeing you on a future webinars now.